Download Whiskey Hell Podcast. We call attention to the mainstream media narratives weekly in hopes that you'll have fun with how ridiculous the news really is. We don't want to change your mind. We just want to give you perspective so that you can choose more wisely and be more aware. Couple that with great craft beer, hilarious stories, deep thoughts, and real conversations. We know you're going to enjoy it. Download Whiskey Hell Podcast anywhere you find outstanding shows.
Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? Hush.
Hello. Welcome, World Ablaze listeners. Today, we're going to do something a little different. A little away from the norm. I usually do a lot of news, politics. I do a lot with society, but I want to try to get into doing more interviews and interviewing people who are, I would consider maybe, professionals in the field, as in they know exactly what they're doing. They're a little unique and or have really unique insights into a particular topic. And today, he's been on the show before. I have my brother, Manuel Fontes, who has a few podcasts. His flagship, the most notable at the moment, will be the Stretchgoose Podcast, and I encourage all of you to listen to that. It is Stretchgoose Podcast. Stretchgoose spelled as one word, and you can hear that pretty much everywhere, honestly. Was tracking, I believe, top 100 on Good Pods for a while, and is currently only 30 downloads away from 3,000. And I got to say that's a little bit skewed because been doing it for quite a while and has basically tweaked and rebooted the show many times. So those numbers are a bit skewed, but ever since he decided to settle on a format and say, I'm just going to fucking go for this, it's been tracking. It's getting results. So we're going to pick Manuel's brain a bit on the podcasting world. Since every one of you are listening to this podcast, you obviously have some interest in it. And it is a very, very large medium today, especially when it comes to information. Very few people are watching the news as they used to, and they're getting a lot of information from actual direct interviews from reputable sources. So with that being said, let's welcome Manuel Fontes to the World Ablaze podcast.
Hello again.
Hello
again.
I feel like I just saw you.
I know, because I had you for an hour and 40 minutes on the other one.
Right.
It was in about a week, or not even a week. Shit.
Yeah, not that long ago.
And you're right. Those numbers are skewed because I do have 3 or 4 different versions. A lot of those downloads aren't recorded because I switched platforms or switched different hosting platforms is what you call it. There you go. So I mean, I'm sure those numbers are a little higher, but the last year of actual seriousness is where those 2,000 downloads come from. Out of the 2970 that I currently am on. So that's that for whatever that's worth anyway.
Right. So let's dive. I want to dive in. I don't think we talked too much about this. Let's dive into the podcasting world as far as you're concerned. Let's tell everybody, when exactly did you get started?
2016 officially.
16. And was it Stretchgoose back then, or what were you doing?
It was Stretchgoose Podcast. And then a month into that, I decided to do another one based off of my rants. So it became Complaints and Grievances. And then I released Stretchgoose Sports. And then I did Stretchgoose Reviews Everything. So that was about, in 2016, 2017, about 4 or 5 of those things.
Was each one of those on a different podcasting hosting site?
All of them were. I think it was all on Podbean. I think I had one on Anchor, and then I ported it back to Podbean.
Okay.
So I've never really gone past those 2 platforms, really.
But each time, did you relaunch the show itself?
The only show that's still moving is Stretchgoose. The other ones basically were killed.
So they were labeled as like Stretchgoose Sports,
Stretch Goose,
Okay.
because I had this weird vision of making a Stretch Goose enterprise. So it was like everything was under the banner. So I was thinking Stretch Goose Sports, Stretch Goose, the regular Stretch Goose reviews everything, Stretch Goose complaints and grievances. It was going to be a whole thing, and then I was really thinking about a network, and then adding people to it, adding other talent to it. But then I learned pretty quickly within that first year, it's about building one before you build the others, and then you swing the bat a few times on how you want to do it. Now, what formula works for you, essentially?
Right.
So,
I mean, I'm obviously way newer to this, and my first experiences were actually on your show. So the thing I found, and it's something you brought up, was something that needs to be said more. I see a lot of podcasters. I mean, look, it's almost become an oversaturated medium, but I find that most people they crash and burn really quick because they don't have the patience to stick to putting out a quality product or even trying to be consistent. And for some of it's hard. You know, we have full-time jobs. I know you do. I have full-time company and job. Many other people have full-time jobs and they do all this on the side. What do you have to say in terms of how do you keep motivated and what should other people do to stay motivated on track? Because I found that even with any business, like we can call it a business if you want to, it's really our hobby, but it could be a business.
but you do have to treat it as a business,
Right.
In
Well,
some sense.
what I was going to say is it's really about longevity, right? Like you got to be consistent and you got to have product out there for people to basically consume.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people on how they get over that hurdle?
Well, the consistency is really what I'll say. I'll say it like this: if you really want to do it, you'll do it. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that flirt with the idea and flirt with the possibility of some mythical fame that might come from this, but this has to be one of those passion projects that you have to you have to really want to do it. This is how the best way I can say that. And it's a lot of people will come into this thinking about instant fame, and then they find out that no one gives a shit about their 3 episodes, and then they start to go into the tank because then it gets in their head. And so this is a grind. This is something that you have to want to be a part of, and it has to be that passion for. You have to have that burning desire to actually want to sit here. And if you're by yourself, you are the editor, you are the engineer, you are the voice, you are the writer. So you have to really be locked into producing that. And like I said, a lot of people don't have that patience, like you were saying. And the motivational side of it is just that satisfaction of putting something out, completing something, getting it getting it out into the world.
You say in the end that you have to decide that you're doing this or realize you're doing this because you're doing it for yourself.
It is for
first,
yourself,
right?
Yeah.
I think you're right. Some people lose sight of it and they do want the instant fame, the instant fortune that might come with podcasting or any kind of art form, but they're not understanding that it's really something that is done because it's in you and you want to do it. I agree with you. A lot of people jump on the bandwagon of podcasting thinking they're just going to be an instant celebrity,
An instant hit.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a band too, you play your clubs, you got to put the grind in.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
If you don't do that, you don't expect to walk out there with a hit single on day one.
No, and even in bands, I mean, just even one hit single doesn't guarantee you longevity and success. I mean, you have to build your catalog.
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of asking, how you felt about things and how you would motivate others. I mean, you just said what someone should do, but dropping out early is not the way to go. Correct? It's putting out content. Now, are you finding not just putting out content though? What about consistency? I mean, let me back up actually. What is more valuable, having 1,000 episodes, for example, or being consistent in how you deliver that content?
It has to be it's not about the quantity. It is always about the quality of the content. So you have to even if you release once a week, that's fine. Whatever you are able to do, but that thing has to be 100% nailed, locked in, finished, because people aren't going to listen to your, bullshit if it has no realism to it, or if it has no, like it's poorly written, I guess, like it's a story of sorts. So if you write like shit, especially I know I have a hard time answering this very question because it's like
You're just trying to grab the right words.
yeah, because I mean you can put out 1,000 episodes and 5 of them are okay.
Is this the word you're reaching for? Substance?
Why you see he's he's that thesaurus people.
No,
I
not really. Well, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I feel that's what you're trying to get. It's like there's too many people that put shows out just because they want to put it out and they want to put 1,000 episodes out, but the actual substance and everything that goes into it is very poor quality.
And in truth, you're really only, you think you're competing against everybody, but you're really only competing against yourself.
I'm happy you said that because that's a really good point. I think people do get in their head they're competing, but
you're not going to win the Joe Rogan battle.
No,
that everybody thinks that. Oh well, and I say everybody because I've joined the social medias, which is something I fucking never do, and I've been on it for less than 6 months, and it ain't hard to get 140 followers in 6 months just by playing with the algorithm. So that's like a cheap way of getting ahead. But then when you read the stories of a lot of these podcasters that are on there trying to pump their shit, when they write down in their bio who they are, they compare their podcast to a famous person. You're already setting the bar of failure.
Right.
You just got your podcast does not have the budget. Your podcast doesn't have the ability. And Joe Rogan has $100 million deal. Every time he turns that thing on, it's at least 9 to 10 million are listening that week.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're never going to hit that number unless you put the real work in, So that's the best way yeah.
No, agreed. Everybody has delusions of grandeur, right?
Yeah, you're competing. Your only competition is you. And that's about you have to beat what you did last week. Is kind of a better way of saying it.
So it's almost a lesson in self-improvement,
yeah,
right? And teaching yourself that you can actually complete something, and then once you do that, you feel satisfied and you want more of that. Is there something to be said about being able to? I mean, with this medium, I find you can actually say more than you usually can when you're talking to a group of people out in the world, for example. Like you're out with your buddies, usually some conversations and some things that you really want to say, you almost want to hold back. And I find that with the podcasting, you can let loose a bit because it's just you and the microphone, right?
There's no one there to slap you.
Oh, well, there's that, and there's I don't think there's any inhibitions in terms of, I should hold back because I don't want to offend this person, or I don't want to get in this long drawn out argument over something that I didn't intend to make an argument. I just want to get my point across. And in podcasting, it seems that that's out the window. So, I mean, especially when you're doing the solo thing, right? It's just you, the microphone,
yeah,
and then you can release it out into the ether, as they say. And if people listen, great. But there is a buffer of, if someone disagrees with you, they want to call you an idiot or whatever they want to do, they can't yell in your face. Now, is that a good thing? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to, do you find that might overinflate some people's egos because they don't always get that check?
Yeah, good.
Like that, like you said, like that slap in the face.
Podcasting takes away your fear.
Yeah,
and sometimes that's bad because I've heard a lot of shows where these guys just say shit to say shit. Nothing. There's no substance. Nothing's backing it up. It's just straight attacking for an hour, and then they'll get like some feedback, but it's like they don't really have to read the negativity. They can just go right back to calling that guy names. But then again, the audience wins out because they stop listening. So I guess there's a give and take on that.
Yeah, there's always a chance of losing the audience. So what do you think someone should do to keep their ego in check when it comes to the podcasting world? Because I think you're absolutely right. I've heard a lot of podcasts. Now, listen, I listen to the big ones like you do. Everybody does, right? And we can, if you, what you should be doing outside of, getting entertained and whatever satisfaction you get from, let's say, listening to a Joe Rogan or, whatever you listen to, you should also be paying attention to what makes them better and taking notes and trying to improve yourself. But for those people who tend to lose sight, as you said, they don't have fear anymore because there's no one there to oppose them, right? And then their egos get overinflated, which leads to a bad product or a very toxic product. So what can you say someone should do in this podcast arena that keeps their ego in check?
Honestly, I have that's a question that's very hard to answer.
Is that just a matter of someone's personality?
Yeah, I mean, if they're a dick, they're going to stay a dick with no one in front of them.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
The question of keeping people in check. I mean, I'm over here on the West Coast, and some dude in China calls me an asshole. What am I going to? I mean, I'm still going to be the asshole. He's not going to stop me.
Well, fair
You're
enough.
never going to. No one's going to stay in check on that. It's not possible. And the only thing that's going to check them is the audience. If they don't like it, they won't listen. They won't get the feedback. They won't get the downloads. They won't get the likes, subscribes, and then eventually they'll run out of motivation. It's the same thing when you're watching TV and shit. No ratings, no show.
True.
But
especially for those who are egotistical, they're absolutely.
I mean, here's the best egotistical show that got canceled, maybe because of the strike, but when all the late night guys went on and did a podcast together, the Fast Force 5, whatever the fuck that was.
I honestly don't even recall that.
Well, they had the writers' strike, and on the late night hosts, I thought were comedians that write jokes, but I guess they don't. They have writers that do the jokes. So they didn't have anything, so there was a work stoppage. So they put out a podcast. All 5 of them were on there. Strike Force 5 on Spotify.
I never knew.
It's a pile of it sucks because you realize how much talent they don't have.
Okay.
So it lasted, I think, 5 episodes. Nobody listened to that shit, and it just went away. And these are famous comedians, so I mean, the audience will always win.
So is this an example of your ego getting in the way of the product?
Here you have people that have late night shows and they have big egos. They talk a lot of shit, and they're like, "Oh, my name will get people to listen to this Strike Force, whatever the fuck," and nobody did. So, I mean, the audience will always win, and that's something you got to keep in mind when you're doing this. Is the audience is going to, they're going to win. If they like it, they'll hear it. If they hate it, they won't. And it's up to you to put, So like when you kind of go off a little bit, I guess, but so when you put out an episode and you get some feedback about a particular part in a good way, take that part and make that part of the next episode. And then if you get another good thing, take that part of that episode. Now you got 2 good things running in one episode, and you just keep building on that. And anything that's negative, you try to not include. And it's kind of the audience shaping your show, I guess.
Well, that that's the thing. And at what point does your show become just what your audience wants you to do, and then you become basically a slave to the audience,
right? But sometimes I found throughout the journey, obviously there's a episode right now for this run. For the life of me, I don't know why it has almost 500 downloads. All I did, but I just talked about fucking debit cards getting stolen in California, and I guess that's either that's a big thing, or was the title, or what. But that seems to be a very positive episode. Like there are some episodes you're just like, I don't know what the fuck it is, but apparently you like that.
Right?
I mean,
so I'll get past this ego thing, but
I understand. Well, see, I know this. I mean, I don't know. It's just my opinions aren't.
Well, I'm asking you. You're here.
I know.
We want to hear your views on this. You're the guest here, but what I meant by getting past the ego thing is, I believe we addressed it, and I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. It's kind of hard to keep the ego in check when you have no one there to check you, especially when you're doing a solo podcast. I also think that most people that have these egos are also very much narcissistic. And, they just want to hear themselves. They want to feel like they're above everybody. And also they know more than everybody. So maybe not just checking your ego. It'd be more about, maybe you also just have to stay an open-minded individual, not just be closed off to just, what you know in your own bubble. Get out of your bubble and maybe do some more reading and research and, look for opposing viewpoints. Do you think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they don't want to be challenged or sound bad or make a mistake?
Well, yeah, they don't want to have. A lot of them don't want guests with them because they don't want to. A lot of them don't want to be challenged.
Now, to that
knowledge wins out too. So if you don't know anything, you're going to sound dumb. You'll end up losing.
Yeah,
so
very true.
The only way to get better is to educate yourself in whatever. Like if your podcast is about bicycles, you better know every goddamn thing about a bicycle. Basically, that's kind of what I'm saying. So
that, and not be afraid to admit your wrongs and mistakes, I believe.
And that's another thing too. None of them want to be wrong. And there's no progress there.
Well, let's flip this. Let's get this away from the host side of it, because let's say you're genuinely trying to be a good podcaster, which most of us, I think the majority of us want to be. And you're not trying to be egotistical. You're trying to learn. You're trying to be objective, and you're really going out of your way to find opposing viewpoints and hopefully learn and grow. But what about those guests who want to cherry pick and only want to go on shows that are, I mean, everybody wants to be seen in a good light, and I don't think anyone's here to make a guest look bad, but they're really all about, I don't know if it's a fit because X, Y, Z. And a lot of times what I'm finding is it comes down to maybe your political views, whatever your view is on a certain topic. I'm not saying this is what we're talking about, but let's just say abortion, just because it's such a hot topic. Everyone has, it's either one way or the other, right? It's not too much in between on that one.
Right.
They're still afraid to be challenged and be on the show, but I think that's a mistake, because if you are a guest who's trying to build your career on being someone who's considered an expert in a field, right? I mean, they're trying to use a platform to build their name. Do you think it's also a mistake for them not to go on shows and be interviewed by people who may not see everything the same way they do?
Yeah, if you want to move up, you better play the game. Yeah, I would think that if you want to get your name out there and you want to build your brand, your audience, whatever, if you get an invite, you better take the invite. To turn it down because you guys have a difference of opinion or your show is 5 downloads less than this show. That's kind of a short-sighted way of looking at it. I think everything is positive. If you go in, you make it look good for you. People will remember you, and then you'll be on the next one. Next one, eventually, you'll get on stuff that matters, I guess, a little bit more to what you believe in. But I think it's best to put your ass out there than to sit there and stay home and go, no, I don't want this podcast, or I don't want this podcast because, this guy's only got an audience of 2, and this guy's got an audience of 10. I'll just take the 10 over the 2, but the 2, that guy might have something. You just don't know. Get out there, because I have my audience. Last time I looked at it was, I think 20 subscriber wise, 20 guys. I think last time I looked, but I have more downloads than subscribers, so somebody's listening. So
and I find that not everybody always subscribes.
Not everybody hits the button to get the notification.
And with many of the apps we have, Spotify, Apple, whatever, it's gonna try to predict your listening habits anyway. So whether you subscribe or not, let's say they listen to Stretchgoose and they don't subscribe, but then they go through your catalog and they listen to another episode. So let's say they listen to 2 or 3 and they're not subscribers. The next time they go onto that app, Apple's going to go, hey, you've been listening to this. Here's a featured episode, or here's what's new. So they're going to get that feed anyway without them actually hitting the subscribe button.
Yeah.
So the numbers are, again, kind of like when we started with the show with numbers are skewed. That's one example of skewed numbers, right? Now, going back to the guests, though, I think it's also the host response. I'm sure you may feel the same way. because you're not a vindictive, evil type of person. But the host it's also the host's responsibility to do a little research on the guest, right? And also not be a dick, as in going out of your way to make this person look bad.
Right.
You should have a respectful conversation. And have you found that to be an issue with many new podcasters, or the podcasters who are wondering why they're not growing? I've heard some where it seems like their whole shtick is literally trying to make the person on the other end look bad and look stupid. What do you say to that?
If I'm having a guest on, I would do about a week on it. I would try to learn as much as I can and ask questions based around that. So that way I look a little smarter, not to go in there blind and have just a free for all, because you're basically offending the guest, because it's like, oh, well, let's say I'm promoting a book, but you didn't read my book. I mean, that's kind of
Very true.
a dick move. Wouldn't you read the book so we can go through some of these chapters or some shit like that? Doing your homework is key. You want to know everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do some deep cut background stuff too if you find it and trip them out. Like, oh, you know that? I mean, that might bring in a friendship, which then leads to other things on as a network anyway to build on.
And also treating a guest properly leads to a better overall product, right? A better podcast. And if others listen to you with the guest and it's a good positive experience, more guests are going to be wanting to be a guest on your show.
They'll be inclined to play. Yeah. If you do it right and then you get a reputation of being good, they will come to you.
So what I'm hearing from your perspective in the podcast world, everything is, don't be afraid to put the work in, stay consistent, and don't be a dick.
Basically. I mean, this last run that I've been on right now, I have been less inclined to try to do guests or any type of deep stuff, because more for me, it's a time issue, but when I did, the stuff I said is kind of where it goes. You try to be as consistent as possible. You try to learn, as much about whoever's coming on. And ask questions that make sense. Don't just ask like, what's your favorite color? Because who gives a fuck,
So what's your favorite color?
That's a dick move. Well, blue, I guess. Fuck, I don't know. Just, that's a derail. Okay.
Well, so let's talk about numbers. Look, you're 30 away from 3,000, and I think everybody that listens to my show, your show, and whatever other shows that our listeners listen to need to put the word out, and let's help you get to 3,000. I mean, it's only 30 away. That's not a lot. I mean, that could be like a weekend's worth of people's listening, or even like 1 or 2 days of people listening on their way to work, or in between their lunch breaks. So I'd like to see you to get to 3,000, and it's been a long time coming because you've had to retune your show more than once. So it's not like, I mean, you're probably way over 3,000 at this point, to be honest, but it just hasn't been recorded on this particular show, right? On Stretchgoose Podcast, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to, all these fits and starts, I mean, if I add it all up, I'm probably conservatively approaching 5,000.
That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah,
I feel that's probably about where you're at the moment.
But again, if we're talking statistical stuff, a lot of that shit I don't even buy to begin with.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into that with you because I know you have a lot of opinions about it. And you said something I've always said this, and I think you said it earlier right now, today on this show, something about treating the podcast like a business, right? A lot of people wonder, why am I not growing? Why is my audience not getting bigger? And a lot of people have the idea of, I want to make this my job, and I want to monetize this and make an income. What do you have to say to people who don't understand that if you want to make an income on something, you have to actually treat it like a business?
You just answered your own goddamn question.
I mean, maybe, but you know, you have insight on this being. I mean, you started in 2016, so I'm sure along the way you could definitely expand on this, right? I mean, I'm trying to be very general. I want to open the floor to you on this because you've been doing this a long time, and you've taken, from what I've seen, you've taken the opposite approach of many other people. You're trying to do the organic, slow growth, consistent, because you're trying to put out quality over quantity. You're not trying to rush things, and a lot of people try to rush things, and they burn out, and they don't understand that you have to treat this like a business, as in you have to put the time. You know, you said it earlier, you have to make sure your quality of product is good. And that's not just the content. I mean, the content's extremely important, because if you don't have anything valid to say, or you don't have anything anyone wants to listen to, they're not going to listen to you. But also when it comes to the quality of the production, I think a lot of people fall short on that. But I just want to give you the opportunity to understand on the business aspect, everything from what your thoughts are on monetization, advertising, production, you know, microphones, all that crap. What do you think? What do you have to say to someone getting into it?
It doesn't cost that fucking much. Don't listen to all the hype about this. It really doesn't. I was doing it with a USB mic stuck to a $300 computer. And I even gone through the app on the phone for the first year. And the quality sound-wise, you know, a little below average, but it was clear, it was loud, you can hear it. I mean, and that was less than $150 total. But, you know, when you're paying the hosting fee, the USB mic, you know, you can get them back then $80, whatever, but you can get them now for maybe $25. You know, so as far as how much does it cost, it's all horseshit. When all these guys that are on social media or on YouTube talking about the cost of this stuff, 90% of what you hear is bullshit. You know, you don't need a boom arm. You don't need a fucking super duper mixer. You know, a little small, you know, single channel. If it's just you, just plug one mic in if you want to get a mixer. If not, straight into the fucking computer. And it's really cheap to start. Now, if you want to start getting crazy with it, you know, if you have the means to, or just for the fuck of it, yeah, you can go with the arms and the bigger mics and stuff and sound a little bit better or excellent, and depending on what tier. But as far as cost, that's all horseshit.
So cost of entry isn't high.
No, it's not. And
unless you're me, I'll just blow money on it.
Yeah, well,
I don't care.
That's because you know, $1 million host over here.
Yeah, right. No, but yeah, I agree. It's not that expensive.
It's really not.
And even a good quality mic these days doesn't cost that much.
Mm-mm.
And I think that to start, it really, like you said it, what do you want to achieve? If you just want your voice on there,
plug your ass into the cell phone.
Yeah, and even if you get a cheap little mixer, most of them have USB on them, and they'll mix everything down to a 2-track, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to like pretty much live mix your show on the mixer. You can go to Audacity for free, and you got a recording.
That's too. The software is free. 90% of the software out there is open source and free. So there's no fucking reason to go spend $200-$300 on engineering software.
Well, no, there isn't. I mean, you got to be. I don't know. I can't speak. I have a different perspective based on just my personality. That's why.
Well, you're asking about cost and start, so that's kind of, I mean.
No, you're correct. I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever. So at what point do you think, let me back up. It seems like the only real consistent cost is your hosting, correct?
Yeah, you have to pay someone.
There are some free hosting programs, but are they not also limited by hours or how many you can put out?
Well, there are some that do it for free. But they don't provide the deep dive analytics type stuff, or they don't do video. I don't know if you're into video, but there's stuff like that they take away and entice you to buy the full thing. So like Podbean is $14 a feed, and it provides about as again, the fucking analytics side is like as best as it can be, I guess. I don't know how, it's not as, in my opinion, it's not the deepest thing ever, but it provides some, you know, so you can see like certain country downloads, things like that. But, you know, there are, you know, Spotify folded anchor into their thing. That's free. RSS.com has a free, entry level one, but like I said, it's like so many hours per month or some shit. So I mean, there's free, and then it depends on how high up you want to go, I guess.
So it doesn't cost much to get into. It sounds in the beginning the most valuable thing is your time.
Yeah, you got to put the work in.
At what point do you think it's like? At what point can you sit back and decide now it's time to put more money into this?
Know when it's time to spend. Oh, it's well, for me, it was time to spend when I started to get the attention. Because now it's like, okay, when I noticed the upticks, and it's like, well, people are listening. I do have a confirmed subscriber here and there, so people they want to hear what I got to say. So I guess I should probably make this a little bit better than sounding like a garbage can.
So when that happened, what did you find was the first priority for you in terms of stepping things up?
Space. Because I was doing it in my office, and then
so is it important to have not just like you mean your own space, like a dedicated space?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I was doing it in the office, and then when I needed to do more of it, there wasn't the time because people live there too. So then it was, I'm going to build a 60 square foot studio in the backyard, which I did, and then that gave me, when they go to sleep, I go out there at night and I knock it out. And then once you get into that and you start insulating it, it turns into a studio. Then it's like, it's kind of weird to say, but it's like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, this looks stupid if it's a well-built building and I got like this weird-ass mic on a stand with like a laptop, so I better make it look like a studio. I don't know, in my head, I just kind of had that. That's just a preference thing, I guess. I don't know.
So part of stepping up the quality is, a lot of people overlook a dedicated space. You're so right. Like not having the dedicated space where you feel it's your own and you can let loose in, that's extremely important. And not just to having the space, but the vibe of the space, right? That helps motivate you and how you feel and how you want to approach things.
You want to dress it. You want to dress that space up to reflect you at whoever you may be. For me, I'm a toy collector, so it's stuff with toys and art things, and it's a peaceful place to walk in. Well, crawl into. It's a small, but
So what about stepping up production quality? When do you think it's time for someone to start spending money on that?
Well, production.
And hold on, before you answer, I want to bring this up because there are podcasters, and we'll get to the numbers thing. So I'm going to say alleged numbers that have allegedly large numbers in amount of followers that have horrible audio quality and are still getting away with it. What's your thoughts on that?
That they suck at their job?
No. Aside from that, like what's your thoughts on actually putting time into your audio quality?
Those are guys faking it and making it. I mean, no, you once you get to a certain level, you can't do it all by yourself. So you're going to have to find people. You're going to have to, cut the jobs up. And when I hear the same shows you hear, it doesn't seem like they are. It seems like you got one guy with his hand on the mixer and he's talking into a mic kind of above the mixer. Then he disappears, which means he's leaning over to pull a cord or some shit. And then the other guy tries to talk over and it just sounds muffled. It sounds like they're in a fucking bathroom somewhere.
Right.
So once you get to a certain level, you gotta chop the jobs up. So you gotta find someone who's really good with the production stuff, or at least marginally okay, to where you can hand them the audio file and that they're going to put it together. So that for me, I don't have that, but I'm also not in a giant space, so I'm not that far from anything. So when I do it, I'm doing all of it, but it's all feeding in at one take. So I'm able to move things because I'm not that far away,
That's an important thing you said. It's being able to understand when it's time to delegate jobs and responsibilities to people who specialize, like the production person or whoever's handling the recording and editing side, and then allowing you just to be the host.
Just to write it and yak about it.
Yeah. But I got to say, what about the equipment?
There are control freaks out there that just won't give it up.
True. But what about the equipment itself? Because there's only so long that I think you can go with using cheap microphones and, cheap interfaces, because quality in is quality out. I mean, literally.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously.
And I'm just saying this because it comes from my background, as a live sound engineer. And I've recorded a couple of albums with bands. So I've been in the studios and I've had real equipment in front of me. And I do understand not everybody can afford, a super high-end mic that costs $4,000 or $5,000. And honestly, if you're podcasting, I'm not necessarily saying there's a need for that type of microphone. It's a little bit much, and you don't need to go there. But when do you go from, the $80 USB mic to the $500 or maybe even $700 broadcast mic?
You can find deals though. I don't know if you want to go $500 broadcast mic.
Okay, so you're saying you don't, the equipment doesn't matter?
No, it matters. We're talking about overall price. I found my mics on a clearance rack for $100, and I think they're pretty good. For what they are. I mean, they're not what I'm talking into now, which are obviously 5 levels up, but.
Well, no, I wasn't trying to say that.
You're just telling me that my shit.
I was just using an example of 80 to 500. I'm not saying someone has to spend 500. What I'm saying is, look, there's a definite difference between a $20 USB mic and a $200 mic.
Well, fuck yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So when do you think it's time for someone to move in the direction of the $200 mic?
Again, when your following is better, there's no reason to go in with a $200-$300 mic if no one's listening.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful to the kids out there, but that's just kind of how I view it. I mean, if no one's listening right away and you're working on yourself and you're working on your product, there's no reason to me to go dive in with a $200-$300 mic and talking to nobody.
Well, you're right.
You might as well get you're getting your practice in the first, I don't know, first run, whatever that may be, 10 episodes, whatever.
You're absolutely correct, because even I started with I got a deal on I started with a condenser mic, and I knew, when it comes to this, and this is basically just broadcasting, right? And a condenser mic is extremely sensitive, picks up all kinds of stuff. But I started with that just to test the waters.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good one, but I did get it on a deal. I got a really good deal. It was almost like a 2-for-1. I don't know if they were clearing them out or what they were doing. I said, hell, I'll try that. And I did get a few shows in before I realized this isn't working. And a lot of that is because of me, like because of my background. But I didn't say, hey, I'm going to blow, $2,000 on a mic, because you're right. You don't need that.
No.
But I believe that you should be able to split the difference. If you can spend 80, but you know you can stretch to 150 or 2, try it. It might be worth that investment. Now do your research first. Don't just throw money away, but get the best that you can afford, because to me, once you make that purchase, you're pretty much done with it. And you may never need to upgrade. And once you get to, like you said, Joe Rogan status, well, at that point, it's a whole nother ballgame anyway.
Then the money doesn't matter.
Right.
You can just go to town.
So sounds like your message is put out quality content and stay consistent. And then the steps to take to improve on, let's say, gear or anything else will come after your audience starts responding. Once you know that you're doing it right.
Once you know that you have something that's working, then you can, in my opinion, you can switch to your upgrades and start to sound a little bit better, add some more, transitional stuff maybe, or, just once you know that you have a following of sorts and people like it, then that's my opinion anyway.
So it sounds like nobody has a reason to be scared to get something started.
No, because you don't know who's listening when you start. So who cares? Just keep going.
You're right. And for like your example of a podcast having only 2 listeners at the beginning, I mean, that one listener could be freaking Bill Gates. You never know who's out there. You never know who may be liking what you're talking about.
That's why we're talking about the guest thing. It's like, don't be too choosy, because you don't know. You don't know who the fuck's on the other end.
That's pretty good point there, actually.
I mean, unless unless you are a science fiction guy, then I guess it wouldn't make sense to go do a video game podcast.
No.
I'm being
kind of stick to what you know. You mean?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, if it's all science fiction, don't be too choosy with which show. Just jump on all of it. But
Oh, you mean, for example,
I should have said that in the beginning. It just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, well,
so as a guest, if you're into gaming,
stick to gaming,
but put yourself out there
to be on all the gaming stuff.
And on the same side of that, or on the opposite side, I mean, the host should be good enough to do the research on the guest and do the best to help that guest shine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it makes a ton of sense to me.
Like I said, it just hit me right now, and I should have said it with that question.
So now that that's all good advice. Now that we're going to stick on the business side a bit, you have a lot to say about numbers.
I do.
And I'm not even going to tee this up because I think you already know what you want to say about this. So why don't you talk about analytics and data? And I'll chime in here and there, but I'm sure that you already got this down, so I don't have to tee you up for anything really. What? Let's start with that. I'm just going to let you go. So what do you say to people on how to accurately interpret analytics and data when it comes to their show? And when you get there, should they be discouraged by what they're seeing if it's not as high as they think it is?
They should never be discouraged by the numbers, because none of those are numbers, no matter what you're looking at, is accurate. Because when you go to different platforms, they have different rules to count downloads. They have different rules to count, subscriptions and things. So if you go to Apple, they count a download as 30 seconds. So some guy could just go in, listen for 30 seconds, and it counts. And it's not a guy listening to the whole show. So you don't really know if that person ever came back, or if you like, because Apple doesn't break it down by that guy listening again or being engaged again. So the numbers come in, but they're not 100%, as far as who's listening and who's not. And that's what Apple does. And I think, and when you go to Podbean is the same kind of deal, where it's like 20 something seconds counts as a download. Okay, but then subscribe, and then so as I'm saying, these numbers they're never going to be accurate. They're never going to be on point, because if you're on a Podbean, the platform you're on, they don't get their updated downloads until 48 hours after whatever day you're looking at. So one day I'll be looking, and then it'll be, 3 downloads. Then the next day, no downloads. Next day, no downloads. And then the third day, I'll get 60 downloads. So don't be, all upset about that when you look at it. And the second thing is, don't look at it every day, or you drive yourself fucking insane.
Yeah, it's not always accurately updated on time.
No,
either.
And it also has to do with the fact that Apple doesn't report to Spotify, because they are two different businesses. Spotify doesn't report back to Podbean. iHeartRadio has a system, but they don't report every week. They report every month. So you may never know. You don't know the exact number of downloads. That's one issue. The other issue that I have with it is, if you want to make changes to your podcast. Well, back up. When you go to port podcasts over from one platform to the other, they want you to reroute it reroute the RSS feed, and that's all well and good. But some places only take certain files. So when I went in and I went to Anchor, they converted all my music, all my files to MP4. And I had them at MP3, I think, or something like that. So when I went back to go to a different place, and I was looking at going to RSS.com, they said, "Oh, you got to convert all your files to MP3, or we won't take it." So then it becomes an email war with companies that don't give a shit about you because you're not Joe Rogan, and you end up in a battle.
Right.
So that's another problem. is none of these guys are willing to leave your shit alone. They automatically convert your files because they say it's the industry standard, but yet another company will be at a completely different format, and they say it's the industry standard. Like I said, they don't talk to each other, and that's an issue. And I wish that they would, because they're all reporting downloads, shares, subscriptions into whatever system you're supposedly on. Then, I mean, I guess they all should play in this, together, and they don't.
It makes you wonder how you know that anybody's numbers are accurate. And when it comes to monetization and advertising, how do advertisers even know that the numbers they're seeing are accurate on a show?
Advertisers only go off downloads. They don't go off of your subscriptions. They don't go off your fucking... Okay, my experience anyway. I know there's probably a guy out there that's going to be like, oh, no. They go off of this. Is it my experience? The first question out of their mouth is, how many downloads do you have?
Right.
So when you say X amount, then they go, okay, well, what's your, then they go and they say, okay, well, you got to be at this download tier in order to get this type of sponsorship or this type of thing. So, I mean, I don't know I personally don't think that they should be determining it that way, because the downloads aren't accurately reported anyway.
Well, it's like the podcast that says they have, 10,000 downloads a day. Okay. And we're talking about people who aren't, we keep saying Joe Rogan, but it's because almost everybody knows who he is, but they're not Joe Rogan or even a Tucker Carlson, right? How is it that these certain people who, honestly, if they're so big, most everyone hasn't heard of, but yet they're supposedly doing 10,000 downloads a day?
That's another issue, is you can pay for it. And I think that destroys the industry or the hobby or whatever you want to call it. Because there's companies out there that you give them a couple of bucks, they will produce downloads on your system, because they have a crew in the back that just downloads for the fuck of it. And if you want to do it for free, because this is how cheap this unpoliced it is, I can literally tell our mom to just turn on play for 2 hours, and I'll get 130 episode download, and it'll count. Right. There's so much fuckery going on, and I don't think that's right. I think there should be a way to track the IP addresses coming off of the thing. And it's like, okay, why is this IP address downloading 250 times tonight? There's got to be something going on here. They should be able to track that and shut that off, but they don't.
They say they do.
No, they don't.
They don't.
Because I actually had emailed Podbean directly and asked them about their analytics and wanted to know why there's jumps on certain shows that are suddenly featured and they have no followers. How does that work?
I wondered that too.
And they said, oh, our system is, as up to date or what the industry standard. And then they said, well, if you want to be featured, you have to pay to be featured. So it becomes part of advertising budget, basically.
Did they take that away? Because I was going through the admin side of it, and I don't see that as something you could pay for anymore, as in trying to be featured.
The last time I looked at it, it was on there. I haven't looked in, I want to say 6 months, because I'm not going to pay to be featured.
No, I mean, you shouldn't. You've been around long enough that you don't have to.
And then I've also, there's also some of the sponsorships.
I agree with advertising, but paying to move yourself up the rank, I don't believe in that.
Those same companies you pay for downloads, you can pay for reviews, and they'll type it up on Apple.
And this will kind of go to I wanted to say it earlier, but this is leading right into...
And this is the very thing that the celebrities do.
See, that's exactly what I was just going to say.
Which destroys destroys the entire thing.
I was just going to ask about that because it's not even just A-list celebrity. I'm talking about like a C-lister. They've got some following, but all of a sudden they decide they're going to be a podcaster, and overnight they're in the top 10 list.
Yeah, well, dude, there's this one, Vanderpump Rules for all. This fucking girl, she left this show. She comes out and she's like, I have a podcast because I want to tell my truth on why I left, because I need episodes of that. And within the second episode, you look down and she's already got 100,000 downloads, and she's got 300 reviews in less than a month, 3 weeks, and you're like, how the fuck is that even? There's, I mean, I guess maybe people are just really want to hear you talk about why you left.
I mean, there is something to be said about being a celebrity, and that's going to attract attention. But I think,
but in less than, well, I don't know. I'm very finicky on this.
It's possible, but there's a lot of people who, like I said, a C-lister or even a comedian that they don't have a lot of following, but all of a sudden overnight they're top 10, top 100, even top 200. I mean, that is strange. It's really strange to just suddenly start and be at that rank. So are you saying that these people are just paying for that?
Yep.
It's all fake?
Yep.
And that does dilute the medium of podcast, because now you're suppressing a lot of really good content creators that have, that are unfortunately not given a chance, because now when you go onto Apple or whatever you use to listen to your podcasts, you're no longer in the conversation in terms of who they want to feature and say, hey, check this out. It's similar to what you're listening to, even if it is. I've also found, I don't know how you feel about this, their content sucks.
There's a show called Smartless, and they're all definitely smartless.
Smartless?
Yes. These three comedians, I forgot what, that's another thing, dude. They basically get a distribution deal out of the gate because they are a fucking guy and an actor at some point. So they go into like iHeart or whatever, and they're like, here's my show. We all know it may suck, but my name is fairly big in the acting world. So let's do a deal here, and you get a bump, I get a bump, and then you can cancel it if you think it's terrible. And Smartless is one of them. And
I've never heard of it.
Dude, you want to throw up in a garbage can, listen to that shit.
So there's got to be a lot of fuckery here.
Like, nobody gives a fuck. I'm sorry, but no one gives a fuck about Jason Bateman outside of his fucking movies.
Well, I was gonna say,
and somehow he's collecting cash from a podcast that is terrible.
Right. So what you said earlier about good quality content, and that's how you build your audience, your show. And yet there's I am not trying to compare myself, because I'm not. Look, I have like 10, 11, less than 20 episodes. I just started. You have way more, but I will listen to some, and I critique my own show a lot. Like I can critique myself, and I'm one of those people that'll listen to another podcast and go, damn, that guy's good. What should I do to improve on? It could be their approach, their attention to detail, how they research, anything like that. But then I hear some others, they might be in my same category, and I'm like, how the fuck is this guy so popular? And it's not just me trying to be a jealous asshole. Believe me, it's not. It's like, literally, how is this person so popular? There's no substance. There's nothing behind it. And I find this a lot with the celebrity crossover, the celebrity that crosses over into the podcast medium.
Yeah.
So they're paying for this. They're literally, using their team to promote them. So they're pumping the numbers so they can get advertisers.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up another one. She's out of the Daily Wire. Her fucking show is 100% reading comments. That's it. And she reacts to it. There will be a YouTube video, whatever, like the Cat Williams shit, let's say. And then she'll just read the comments and react to those comments. That's it. That's her show. And
that's on the Daily Wire?
Yes. And in less than a year, she's over 1 million subscribers.
But she has the Daily Wire behind her.
Yes. They are bankrolling that.
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't think it's working. I've listened to it. It is
a big company behind her. That's probably part of the reason.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of these, as we were saying earlier, talking about a lot of celebrities jumping into the game, or a lot of companies pushing things. This is another one of those great examples. Her show, I fell asleep, through an episode. I literally dozed off.
Really?
It is not something that's going to grab everybody's attention, I'm sure, because a lot of the younger kids might be into this shit. But this thing, to me, was a fucking train wreck. Like, I don't care. I can read the comments myself, and I can process it how I wish to process. So for some reason this show is famous. Like I said, I can process and read the comments myself to whatever it is I'm watching. I don't really need fucking Brett Cooper to agree or disagree. It's kind of a stupid concept that the Daily Wire has jumped on, but they've put so much, fucking money behind her, and they shoved it up there to the, by paying. I feel like when they do this shit, they pay for their everything to be a certain way, through downloads and reviews and things, just to get the thing out there. That's kind of what I think goes on, and that's just that show is an example of that to me. And there are shows where that they're doing it. Like the most recent shit that I saw was when the Wondery Network put out that thing where they're reading reviews. It's another review show, reading reviews, and then they're talking shit about it. And when they had it on launch day, I personally wrote a negative review of the show, and the show got completely deleted and rebooted, and then my review is not even up there. So I know that they're doing something with the behind the scenes to keep these shows in a positive light, even though they suck, or the concept is ridiculous.
So you can't get in the mindset of, like you said earlier, you're not competing with anybody, because people who start out in podcasts, or even people that are at our level, you're not competing with these people because you just can't. There's too many resources behind them, whether they're good or bad. There's too many resources behind them that you're not going to be able to catch up to. Not overnight anyway. I mean, I'm not saying someone can't have a huge podcast and become famous and everything that goes with it, but it's not an overnight success story.
It also has to do with what your goal, I guess, is. If your goal is to have millions of people listening to you, you're gonna be beating your head against the wall, because there are so many companies that are diving into the space, and they all are getting financing. They're all getting bankrolled by other corporations that want a piece, and that's why you're seeing a lot of the more well-known voices, if you will, get bought up, because if you know who that is, you're going to go gravitate towards it automatically, and then you're going to get an audience quicker than it is to build up Joey on the Joey at the bottom there.
Right, and that's disheartening to a degree. I mean,
and I think that's what turns a lot of people off.
Yeah, we're saying go for it. It doesn't take much, just go out and make it happen. Do it for you, because that's all you can do. When the thing with podcasting in this medium I've seen is becoming too corporate.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be just similar to like blogging. It was very open, free form. You were able to just be yourself and really get your art out there, good or bad, but it's still your artistic expression, or you expressing yourself in a free medium. And now it's becoming so corporate that they're literally just suppressing all of the independent voices in a medium that was originally an independent medium.
Mm-hmm. And then, like your example with the bloggers, that was a space where you can, you pay a little money, get your own website, and you start writing your news articles the way you want to, and what you think is good, and what you think brings out, a better perspective on whatever the issue is. But then what ended up happening is the New York Times was losing on audience. So what do? They start buying up the bloggers because they have the resources to do it, and then you destroy that free space, because now you're pulling away the talent or the competition. And that's how a lot of businesses get killed, is they start buying up those businesses. Kind of similar to like, and go to video games for a second, like Xbox, the Microsoft company, billions of dollars in software. They want to get in the video game space. They don't know how to do it because they suck at it. So what do? They turn around and buy up all these game studios for billions of dollars just to compete. And now they're at a level where they're kind of at the same level they're at a level of Nintendo at this point, but they ended up spending money to get there because they suck and they couldn't get it any other way.
So it really seems to be able to, if you want to be the competitor, for example, you got to really focus like you said earlier, about quality content, consistency, but also when it comes to marketing, maybe take the approach of owning your own backyard before you think you can own the world. Why not start promoting your podcast to your peers, to your friends, to your family, even if you want to do that, or other podcasters, and start to really build that community. And then when you have a group of other podcasters that you're familiar with, or that you have a camaraderie with, cross promote. That, to me, that'd be the only way to be able to stand out in this convoluted world of podcasting. That, well, it has become convoluted anyway. It seems that would be the pathway to success, because you're not going to compete with, as you said, Daily Wire, or even Fox that's gotten into the space.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. You don't have the money and resources. But what do you think about just owning your own backyard? I mean, that was always something that in business I thought was valuable.
Yeah, you be number one in your city and then go from there.
Right.
Your goal, be number one in your city. Don't be number one in California, be number one in Fresno,
Or your community.
Yeah. Get, if you really want to interview people and have that kind of a podcast, go get your friend, interview your friend for an hour, interview your next friend, interview your mom, and build it to something, so you can and be number one in your city and get people in your city interested, because you're doing it on a local level. Then if you want to go national or whatever, then you go from there. But you're right. You should be focusing on what's in front of you and not what's at like 3,000 miles over there,
And I'll expand on that. For example, if you have a political commentary podcast where you interview politicians, I mean, you're not going to start day one and think you're going to interview Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom, but you could interview maybe somebody,
city council,
from the city council,
the mayor. Why not?
Or even one of the employees of a city, like the city manager, or if you're able to do that, or somebody else, within local government. Start there, and then once the quality of your podcast and the quality of how you treat your guests comes together, tightens up, and gets out there, then higher profile guests will eventually follow.
Yeah. The main point of this entire discussion is put the work in and get your ass out there. There's no other way to get better without doing it. There's just no other way. There's no quick fix. There just isn't.
So if you're in this just for a quick buck, you might as well stop now.
And well, if you're in this to make money, don't expect Manscaped to give you a big ass deal.
It can happen, it can come, but it's you got to be realistic about your expectations. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, don't expect them to hand you $10 million deal. Out of the gate. You get, whatever you're offered, you take. Even if it's sponsorship from Joey's car wash in town, at least you have something to attach to that'll build into something. Of course, my philosophy, it depends on your goals. Again, like my personal goal is just to sit in front of the mic, vent my frustrations, and feel better. So I don't have an advertising budget allocation, because I'm not looking to do that, but I found that even organically it grows. So there's a give and take, I guess, if any of that just made sense.
Anything else that we haven't talked about you kind of want to bring up?
If you're interviewing, ask questions that fucking matter as well. It's
Good point.
That's one advice I would give. Like I was watching, when you watch the Cat Williams thing, he goes to multiple places to get interviewed, and I know you do your research and you get your background, but don't ask the same 5 questions the last guy just asked, because then it just sounds stale and it sounds very uninteresting, because he's already answered those questions. So if you're following Cat Williams and he answers all that stuff on Shannon Sharp, don't ask him the same shit on whatever show he goes on. It just doesn't. To me, it turns people off. So and if you're going to get into an interview, challenge the guy a little bit. It's like, well, this guy said, this is what happened. Yeah, but this guy said this. What's your thoughts? push him a little too. You get kind of it's a better conversation in my opinion.
Right. Don't be
You
afraid
know,
to try to break their walls down, right?
yeah.
Because
Find out what's under the hood
if you can
in
tell
in
if
a
it's
respectful way. Obviously, you don't go and say, XYZ. I mean, you kind of do it in a calm and professional way. But that's just my thing as far as that goes. Another issue that I think is important is I know people talk about editing like it's a big thing, because take out the burps, the farts, whatever. But I would rather listen to an authentic conversation than the most robotic, overproduced thing ever. It's a turnoff for me personally. I would rather hear you guys have a conversation. You blow a fart, you're laughing at it, then you're getting back into the topic, and then this guy, says, "Oh, I got to do this or that." Oh, and then he, opens a bottle, and you hear the pop, and it's like, oh, it's like I'm in that room with you. But if I'm sitting there listening to you, and I can hear like a jump in the audio, okay, you just sliced out some minutes. Okay, what was wrong? You just start
do you think it's getting to the point where it's becoming too polished? Like people are trying to be too professional,
over polished.
Yeah, because you got something there. Because I'll use Bill Maher as an example. His podcast really seems nothing more than like another TV show. The way it's put together.
Yeah, and it's very. I think it's sad because it's like if this is a space of for everybody, then why are you doing it in a way that turns off a lot of people like that? I would think that you would want to be like, okay, well, this is not my regular TV show. I'm the celebrity. Let's just have an hour. Whatever is there is there. And it's not what they do. It's like, oh, we'll edit that or we'll cut that. It's like, why? I mean, it just to me, it just doesn't seem real.
Podcasting was originally a raw form.
And I think it should stay that way.
Yeah, and that was the appeal. You feel like you were part of the conversation or in the same room, like you said, literally. Yeah. Now, I'll edit, but I'll edit obvious mistakes. I mean, talking obvious audio, whatever mistakes, but I'm not messing with the content of the conversation.
I mean, I cut dead spots. I don't cut the audio.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
or if, I got to think like if I accidentally hit my mic or some loud noise, I'll cut that out because it's just not comfortable for someone to hear in their headphones or whatnot.
No, yeah, but I mean, I'm talking like.
But I'm not altering the conversation, and I think a lot of people do try to alter it to where there's context missing, and it's like you said, it doesn't sound genuine.
No, and then the music they choose. It just seems like it's not. I don't know. Like I just have a whole thing on editing. I just don't think it should be something you do. Like you're not making a music album, so you know what I mean. This doesn't have to be super perfect. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles and stuff. I mean, obviously make it as clear as you can. Make the levels about the same, but don't sit there and start chopping 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes of audio. It could be good audio to somebody. You don't know. And that's just kind of my thing with editing. And I've experienced this. I don't know if you have yet, but there are some genuine assholes out there that are in this space.
There are assholes everywhere.
I know. We talked about it in the beginning, but I mean, I'm going to emphasize it because there are genuine assholes in this space, and I've found a lot of them on Twitter. They all have suggestions, and their own shit sucks. And that really irritates me. They all tell you how you're supposed to sound, how you're supposed to use your stuff, what content, how to, and then when you listen to their shit, you're like, you're no better than me or you're less than me in terms of what's going on. So why are you even trying to offer advice, or they want you to pay them for the advice?
Well, everybody thinks they're an authority.
Everybody thinks, yeah. And it drives me, it drives me nuts, and it just pisses me off because it's like 90 to 95% of us are not famous in this space. We all have our own little world. If you want to be in that subject matter and cross promote, cool. But don't sit here and try to think you're better than me or 5 levels ahead of me or whatever the fuck it is, because I mean, we're all level in my opinion. I mean, they're just dicks out there, and there's a lot of tricky fucks out there with like, oh, listen to me, and then I'll rate you, and then you rate me back or whatever, and then they never respond or never do anything. And then suddenly there's a bunch of graphic designers out there too that think they can make logos. Like everybody just seems to want a piece of this pie, and I think it's sad and it's discouraging, and I just wish a lot of that would change. Like yeah,
Actual real support versus, building your. It should be more supportive rather than, hey, look at me, I'm better than you, and I'm the one who has the answers to it all.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys too. There's some guys that are like, let's get like a debate going. I've had a conversation like that with one of these fucking guys, and it's like, that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do full scale debates, because it's kind of like, okay, what are we gonna do? You're gonna insult me, you're gonna tell me how you're better, and then what? I'm gonna tell you I'm better. I mean, we're not gonna talk about anything. You're just gonna, and then it's like, oh no, that's not what I want. And it's like, well, then what are you talking about? And they just kind of, then they stop responding because they know that you're kind of onto their shit because they just want to pump their fucking page.
Yeah, it goes back to what we brought up earlier about hosts who just, want to be on the other side, just down on the other individual to make themselves look better.
Yeah, it's just saying, it's like
the art. There's an art to debating that has gone away. I don't do debates on my show, and I know you don't either, because people don't know how to debate anymore. They think it's just about slinging insults because they see that's what politicians these days do. But that's not how you debate. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to try to go back and forth and intelligently get your point across to the other person until one can concede to the other and say, okay, you got me. I don't know what else to say. You make a valid point. You win.
Or you're right, but I still disagree. Let's go.
Well, there's that too. And there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing whatsoever.
No. These are I guess you can call them minor quips, because I mean, you don't run into it all the time, but I have had a few of them.
Well, it is a you're right. There is a certain level of toxicity in this world, in the podcast world. I mean,
another thing, video.
What's that?
Not necessary.
I was gonna get to that actually.
I mean, I don't need to see two dicks talking to a microphone.
All right, so let's wrap this part of this up, because you are going to run into assholes, and you're correct. There's a lot of toxicity in this, and I'm not going to make this about me because it's about you, but I'm just going to throw this out because, like you said, there's a lot of guys say, oh, you should use this and do that. With my technical background and my business background acumen, I can call these guys out pretty quickly. And I have ran across it a few times already. But if I had to give advice, it's not about me. It's you're the guest, but I just want to throw something out there. Maybe.
Okay.
Ignore it. Just move on. Don't engage these people.
No, like I said, I've had a few interactions. I read a lot because I get, the old inbox bullshit, but that's just kind of a couple of the things I just had in my head. I haven't responded to a single graphic designer in a year. How much better is your logo going to be than mine? It's like,
or how about those?
And for $25,
how about those professional podcasting people?
The coaches are hilarious.
Podcast promoting people. What do you think about those people?
Oh, they're full of shit. They're paying for it. There's no way you can get me 100,000 downloads on Apple in a week.
Right.
I don't buy it. But they said, oh yeah, and then a lot of them are from the Middle East area too. So I know those are the same guys that scam phone calls. So I don't fucking.
I noticed that. You're
right.
right.
I don't listen to any of that nonsense. That to me, no.
All right, so let's leave the toxic assholes behind us and don't engage them.
Yes, but they will catch a few of you.
Wow.
Because some people fall for it. Well, that's all I got on that one.
That's all you got on that one?
Yeah, there's nothing else to that. Yeah. So.
You were about to say something earlier. You had something on the tip of your tongue.
Uh-oh. Don't rewind the tape.
No, it's not about that.
Yes, I won't. I don't think.
I think it had something to do with you were going back to numbers or something just a little bit earlier, uh, and we kind of got cut off. Um, was that something or did you get your point across already on that?
Well, I think I did. I think I nailed it. You know, there are there are entities that you can pay to get it done. There's things you shouldn't worry about in that area. I mean, I think I've nailed it. You know, they don't report, you know, information to each other accurately. They're all at different times. They also don't trust, you know, the IP addresses can never be 100% identified.
Well, let's talk. I want to go back to what you said about podcasts are overly polished. Do you think that applies to everything in terms of rawness? Because what if you're trying to get into like the news space, where traditionally a newscast or a news opinion type person has to kind of be polished? Do you think being raw
No.
applies to all categories?
Well, if you're doing I'm just talking about the actual conversations of things. But if you're doing like
Oh, I see. So
if you're doing
you're
like
talking about don't mess with the actual content of the conversation.
yeah, I mean, if you're doing a true crime thing and you got to get all your, you know, all the information correct and you fuck up a couple times, yeah, you want to cut it, record it, do it again. But if you're just having a guess, you're having a conversation like this, there's no reason to cut the audio.
Got it.
You know, there's no reason to like bring in an extra effect or whatever. We're just, you know, you're just having a conversation.
Okay, so you're not talking about rawness in terms of the editing of leaving every mistake, blurb, whatever, and you're talking about rawness of, you know, leave the content of the conversation as is, as it was meant to be. Like if we're talking and you say something accidentally at a turn and you got to correct yourself, leave it in.
Yeah, because a lot of those guys will cut that because they don't like that. But I just leave it. I want to feel like I'm in the room with you having this conversation.
Right, and if you're correcting yourself as you're going along anyway, you know, on the recording, you're saying, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. You're right. I meant this."
Then what was the point of the edit? You know,
then leave it in anyway, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying about content.
Got it.
You know, in the audio. Like I said, if you're doing a true crime documentary type deal, you want to keep it in, you know, cut it and do what you got to do because it's got to be, you know, on point. If you're a news guy, I guess I should have just said it by category, but I mean, if you're
no, we don't do all categories, but
I'm just saying. No, I'm saying like I should have clarified this by category. If you're doing a different, depends on your category. So if you are in news, you want to make sure the information's accurate. But if you're in a debate with someone on a political or a news level, I wouldn't cut the audio. Some guys do cut the audio. So like when you hear the audio of Ted Cruz, I know he cuts the audio.
Oh yeah, he does. He
100% cuts the audio because there's a lot of pauses and a lot of static. So but that's a news-based conversational type thing. If you're talking to a politician and you're talking about the Hunter Biden thing, for example, why are you cutting the audio? Just fucking let it go.
Well,
let the talk happen.
That's funny because when it comes to those topics, I know that when you and I have ever gone down that road, you know, whenever I'm on your show or when you come here, we just let it fly.
Yeah, and you don't have to like. That's another thing too. I think there's also over preparing can get you stuck because then you have like 100 notes in front of you. You got to hit them all, or you got to go through them all. There are some guys that have it on a tablet and they scroll through it or whatever. For me, I just have name like topic, but I have no notes under it.
That's it. You know, that was the next thing I was going to actually ask you was about preparing. That's one thing we didn't talk about. Like, how deep should you go? Should it just be an outline? Or, I mean, some people think they got to write it out like a script and they kind of stick to that.
Yeah, there are show mappers out there. They will literally topic what it is, topic what it is, topic what it is. They write down whatever it is they're going to say and they repeat what's on the paper, which again sounds like I'm fucking hearing a robotic show. But I think it's a more natural thing is what I do, to me anyway, is I would just put the topic there. And I might have an article, but it's, you know, it's like a reference to the article, and then I'll have it pulled up and I kind of read the bullet points before I start, and then I press play, and then I'm talking about what's there. Sometimes I will read the article, verbatim because I didn't, pull all the information onto something separate. I just went, with some of it, and then I decided to add the information that the other guy already did. But you try to, also give credit to who wrote it. There's things I do that way. And then sometimes, like I do with my son on that podcast, is we just turn it on and go. If we saw the movie, you tell me what you think. I'll tell you what you think. There's no show notes, no map, no nothing. We just fucking go for an hour. And those things are pretty as fun as they're pretty fun. Obviously, you sat in on one of them. It's just fucking all over the goddamn place.
Right.
And there's just no.
But those are fun because it's just free form. It's like whatever comes out. And I agree with you on the prep thing. You can over prepare to where you can make your show stale.
And you make mistakes because you're too busy staring at shit.
Yeah, you're too busy trying to be exactly what in your mind it needs to be. When it comes to prep, it was a good point you made, because if you're talking about topics and you want to reference things, you want to research that ahead of time. You want to have them prepped, ready to go, and ready to play, and you know when to play them. But your commentary, I mean, I personally don't mind taking notes on something and saying, okay, this is how I think of something. Or if I want to do a show, I'll take notes in terms of the topics I want to go over, and I might do prep on that.
Yeah.
But I don't do a full on script, because I personally believe in free form and leaving room for you to kind of ad lib and just talk off the top of your mind. But if I want to make a point about facts and data, I'll have that up already on the screen so I can either reference it, or if it's a clip, I can play it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's the way you do it. So your advice really, and what you're saying is prepare, but don't over prepare. Don't be afraid to kind of ad lib and just, shoot from the hip, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I used to do that where I would have like 20, 30 pages written down.
Yeah.
Of the 3 or 4 topics. The total would be like that, 20, 30 pages. And then I found myself flipping through it and reading them just directly like a novel. I'm looking down. And I hear the playback and I'm like, fuck, this sucks. Because it doesn't sound like it's coming from me. It sounds like I'm reading. It sounds like I'm pretending to be something.
Well, speaking of writing, how important are transcripts to you? Because that's something that's been coming up a lot lately. If everybody needs to attach a transcript to their show.
I don't attach it.
I don't either. I just want. What do you think though? Like, you think it's needed?
The transcript thing is there. It's an option that a lot of platforms have, and I think it's there just more of a cover your butt type thing.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean that because if you say something, and let's say the audio is gone,
okay,
they have it written down somewhere, so they can say, "Oh yeah, well this happened on the show. Well, it's actually what he said is in the transcribe of the notes or whatever."
Okay.
That's what I think it is. I mean, I could be 100% wrong, but that's what I think it's there for. It's also for the legal side of things because a lot of it's coming from companies with lawyers, so transcriptions and notes. So if somebody sues me, and then I say, "Oh well, this is the platform I'm using," blah blah. Then they go to the platform and go, "Well, this is what was said." Kind of something for them too, I guess. I'm talking off the top of my ass because I really don't know.
Well, no, I asked your opinion. I mean, that those are all valid.
No, I'm just saying I'm not 100% sure the actual purpose of it, unless
it's all valid opinions. I just been coming across it myself, and I'm part of a few communities online and whatnot as well, and everyone's always talking about attaching transcripts and how it helps your SEO for the web to be able to find your podcast, via certain words and keywords and all of that. I don't have time for transcripting. I don't know if you do.
I'm sure that probably is true.
Yeah.
Like it's more for Googling, searchy type things too.
Right.
But if you know the show exists and you like it and you know the title, well, you don't need the fucking transcript in terms of searching for me.
What about, all right, let's just let that die where it is, because I'm on the same page with you, but this is about people hearing your opinion and your kind of your journey in the podcasting world. But I'm going to go ahead and ask you, I know how I feel, but video, does it belong?
No.
So
I don't need to watch Joe Rogan.
In your opinion,
for 3 hours on the video.
Why? I wonder, why is it that everybody's starting to gravitate towards video? I mean, to me, you've always had YouTube for that. That's kind of what that is. You also have Rumble, right?
But that's where those videos are getting posted.
Yeah, but now you also see them like Spotify. You can have a video podcast, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to Spotify, play your podcast, and a lot of them have a video option.
Yeah. Like I said, you don't need it. You don't fucking need video. It's the stupidest.
The true form of podcasting is audio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really an evolution. It's like revisiting the old radio show, right?
Well, it's like, it's like but this is what I said when you asked anything
with
else.
less restriction because we don't have too many rules in terms of I can say fuck, fart, shit, whatever, right?
Not right now. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure there's going to be a
when they start regulating it, then you know it's a dead medium.
Yeah, that's when you turn everything off and you move on.
The appeal has always been the rawness, the straightforwardness, and feeling like you're really part of a real conversation. I think it's all about the audio. So in your opinion, don't concentrate on the video, just build the audio side?
No, because like I said, when you asked me about, what else do you have in, complaint-wise, video, I brought it up. You don't need it because there's first of all, 90% of them are bad at it. It's just a one shot straight on into your forehead and like a Zoom call, and you're hearing people just babble, and it's like, there's no entertainment value there. I just don't understand it. It's like if we were talking, I have a camera staring directly into my face and staring into your face, and it's a wider shot or the lens is wider, then it looks like you're just in a giant spaceship. And it just loses the appeal because now your eyes are going into the back of the room, like what's back there, what has he got over there, and then you're not listening to what's being said. I think it's just a turnoff to me.
So it also goes. I mean, for me, video to me isn't needed also because many people listen to podcasts when they're on the way to work.
Yeah,
during their work. So like if you're a construction worker and you're out there doing whatever you got to do, banging a hammer away or whatever, you can have your earbuds on and listen to a podcast to get you through the day, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Many people do, let's say on their break, they'll throw a show on. Yeah. On their lunch break, they'll listen to stuff. So video doesn't always seem to come into play because if you're truly working or driving, you can't be watching the video anyway. So it's almost like an extra step that people, they over consume themselves with, as in, oh man, I got to do the video because that's what people want. And for a lot of people beginning in podcasting, it's something that they need to just abandon and just concentrate on the audios. With that being said, how do you approach podcasting in terms of the content that you consume? Like, do you primarily do you ever watch video podcasts, or you just concentrate on the audio ones?
I never watch a video podcast. No. I don't. It's like I said, it's stupid. To me, it's stupid. I mean, I can just listen to them have their their conversation in the car. But another thing too is there are also guys that are video only shows that put the audio on podcast platform.
The opposite.
They do the opposite, which is stupid because you're playing a video or you're doing something, and I don't know what you're doing.
Good point. I've noticed that. Yeah, they're like, I'm going to play, like they're making comments and laughing, and they'll literally say, oh, well, if you're on the audio pod, you can't see this, but if you go to this link, you can view it.
Why the fuck would I do that? I'm listening. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I'd watch you, but I'm not. I'm over here in the car.
So it's really almost like if you're going to do this, you should concentrate on two separate shows. One that's video and one that's audio.
Or don't do the audio. Just leave it.
Just video?
Yeah. It's like when the big guy, the Joe Rogan guy, he does 3 hours of video.
Yeah.
And he puts the audio version out. And you're listening to the audio, and it's like, he goes, oh, pull up that information, sir, and put it on the screen. And they started watching a video of whatever the fuck it is, and they're laughing their ass off. And I'm like, okay, that's 20 minutes I'll never get back. Like, what the fuck is that? Why, like, I already can't handle 3 hours of your bumbling nonsense anyway.
So it really is about know your medium, know your audience, and how your audience consumes your medium.
If the audience consumes strictly video, then don't even put too much effort into the audio, the podcast side, in my opinion, because that doesn't make any sense. Because like I say, you don't understand what's going on.
Right. And if you're submitting your shows to podcast aggregators, then concentrating on the video side is just a waste of your time. and then having things in the show that refers to video that person obviously can't see is irrelevant, and it really disconnects the audience from your show.
Yeah, it's a complete waste. You're just wasting your time, to me anyway. I think if you know, and also you're focusing on two things. Focus on one thing, get good at that, then maybe do the other thing. That's just kind of the way I see it, you know.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up. In summary, I mean, there's a lot of good information here. So in summary, you got to put the work in, and concentrate on quality versus quantity in the beginning, but be consistent about what your episodes are in terms of what you release. Correct?
Mm-hmm. And if you're in that category, do what's in that category.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you also said, stop trying to compete.
Yeah, because you'll drive yourself mad doing it. But yeah,
just do your own thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take us out here, and I'm going to say for everybody, let's get him to 3,000 downloads. Please go listen to Stretchgoose Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Have a good day.
Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.